The following program is rated TVMA. Viewer discretion is advised.
Peace, my name is Haven Bullis, and this is the part 2 video I was talking about for the Charlemagne video. This clip right here I'm about to play is 1 minute long. It's Professor Black Truth misrepresenting Kamala Harris and talking about the racial wealth gap. And the 2-minute clip that's going to directly follow it is what Kamala Harris actually said. Here we go, family.
It's Charlemagne and the Breakfast Schlub's job to help deliver, or rather deceive, the young black vote into the Democrat Party's clutches, the left hand of white supremacy. That's his job. Get these young black folks back onto the treadmill. Get them to get excited about politicians who have already told you we ain't doing nothing for you. That's the thing that we've done as the black media. We have brought clarity to the elections. We're forcing people to go on the record. We're making it where you don't get to duck and dodge the question. We're getting in their faces and making it where black interests are at the forefront of the discussion. And when they try the old dodge about, well, I got a lift program that's going to help families making less than $100,000. In other words, it's going to be just a one-size-fits-all policy that applies to everyone and does nothing to close the racial wealth gap. So it doesn't do anything. But this is what they're proposing. And you don't see Charlemagne pointing that out. And you damn sure don't see him calling it out.
Do you support reparations for black people?
Well, listen. Again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination and segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country, right?
As you heard, family, he totally misrepresented what she said. First, he claimed that she said about she's not going to do anything for black people, when she never said that. She said, as you heard in the clip, she said specifically, I'm not going to do things just for black people, which is the correct answer. You're not going to get to become president of everybody talking about you're just going to do things for black people. That's not how this works. You can't even become president of the United States talking about you're just going to do things for white people and they're the supermajority of the country. Come on now. So he totally misrepresented what she said, and a lot of people keep falling for that and keep saying that old lie that Kamala Harris says she's not doing nothing for black people. That canard. Because people can be bothered to watch hours of people talking about what she said, but can't be bothered to actually watch the 2-minute clip of what she said. She clearly didn't say she wasn't doing anything for black people. She said she wasn't going to do things only for black people. Then he contradicts himself by talking about the LIFT Act, which he clearly said in this thing he would help and would benefit black people. But he said earlier that she wasn't going to do anything for black people. Then he talks about the LIFT Act and how that's not going to close the racial wealth gap. First of all, The Lyft Act is perfect, and I need y'all to hear this 4-minute clip, which is an excerpt from this book right here by Francis Fukuyama. This is volume 2 in his political order books, and this one is Political Order, Political Decay. Here we go, family.
Patronage and clientism. A second phenomenon that is often identified with corruption is that of patronage or clientism. A patronage relationship is a reciprocal exchange of favors between two individuals of different status and power, usually involving favors given by the patron to the client in exchange for the client's loyalty and political support. The favor given to the client must be a good that can be individually appropriated, like a job in the post office or a Christmas turkey, or a get-out-of-jail card for a relative, rather than a public good or policy that applies to a broad class of people. The following is an example. In Sicily, a student interested in getting an introduction to a professor from whom he needs a favor approaches a local small-town politician who owes him a favor. The politician puts him in contact with a cousin at the regional urban center, and the latter contacts an assistant to the professor, who then arranges the appointment. The favor sought is granted, and in return, the student promises to campaign for the politician at election times. Patronage is sometimes distinguished from clientism by scale. Patronage relationships are typically face-to-face ones between patrons and clients, and exist in all regimes, whether authoritarian or democratic, whereas clientism involves larger scale exchanges of favors between patrons and clients, often requiring a hierarchy of intermediaries. Clientism thus exists primarily in democratic countries where large numbers of voters need to be mobilized. What is traditionally referred to as the patronage system in American politics was, by this definition, actually a clientistic system, since it involved mass party organizations distributing widespread favors through complex hierarchical political machines. Clientism is considered a bad thing and a deviation from good democratic practice in several respects. In a modern democracy, we expect citizens to vote for politicians based on their promises of broad public policies, or what political scientists label a programmatic agenda. People on the left may support government programs to provide health care and social services, while conservatives may prefer that the government allocate resources to national defense. In either case, voter preferences are supposed to reflect general views of what is good for the political community as a whole, not just what is good for one individual voter. Of course, voters in advanced democracies cast their ballots according to their self-interest, whether that lies in lower taxes for the well-to-do or subsidies for a particular type of business or program targeted at the poor. Nonetheless, such targeted programs are justified in terms of broad concepts of justice or the general good, and even when targeted, must apply impartially not to individuals but to broad classes of people. The government is in particular not supposed to give benefit to specific individuals based on whether or not they supported it. In a clientistic system, politicians provide individualized benefits only to political supporters in exchange for their votes. These benefits can include jobs in the public sector, cash payments, political favors, or even public goods like schools and clinics that are selectively given only to political supporters. This has a negative effect on both the economy and the political system for a number of reasons.
As you heard, family, what she was proposing was a programmatic policy that would help benefit black people. Remember what she said, 60% of black people live in households that make less than $100,000 a year. The Lyft program would literally put thousands of dollars back in these people's pockets. Just because it doesn't say black Lyft program that's only going to help 60% of black families and nobody else can benefit, people are poo-pooing this. This is the worst case of pocket watching I ever seen. Somebody's offering to do something that's going to disproportionately help your group, the supermajority of your group, give them thousands of dollars that they would not have in their pocket, and you're saying it's not good because other people will get money too. What kind of games is that? That's like if I walked up to somebody saying, I'm going to give you $1,000, and the person says, no, I don't want your $1,000. And I'm like, why? Because you're also going to give the dude down the street $1,000 too. What the hell does that have to do with you? What kind of games is niggas playing out here? And again, we got to stop talking in a vacuum. Let's say, for example, Kamala Harris does get the nomination. It'll be the LIFT Act versus what? Trump, no LIFT Act. He ain't giving you anything. He took away the child deductible credit for income tax. He took away the homeowners deduction, which basically takes a lot of the value out of owning a home. He's led to tax increases on everybody else. It's that versus is hundreds, if not thousands of dollars coming out of your pocket versus somebody who wants to put hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in your pocket. What kind of games are we playing here? It's programmatic. They can't just pass a law saying only for black people. Nobody does that. And I'm still asking the question, name me the time in the last 50 years that a law was only passed or only proposed for one racial group. One. Just let me know. Let me know. In the last 50 years, when did that happen? All right, never. And then some of you, like losers, will claim, well, what about immigration? Immigration is not it disproportionately benefits Latinos, but it's not a Latino issue only. It's an everybody issue, like you just heard in the clip. Is dealing with immigration reform for the whole country, but it will disproportionately help their people. A perfect programmatic policy. And they are so smart with it that they even have expanded their policy. As you can see here, who is this? Yvette D. Clarke, talking about the Dream and Promise Act of 2019. Remember, it was just a Dream Act before. But to get more support, they reached out to Yvette D. Clarke to put the acts together, to put their bills together, because she had the Promise Act, which pretty much helped a lot of black immigrants. So they say, you know what? You need to put together that Promise Act with that Dream Act. Why? So it helps more people so they can get more support to get what they want. Who cares if other people are eating? As long as you get to eat your food, you should be happy. This is the games, and this is why you don't get nothing done. And I need y'all to watch this clip, family.
I come back to what I was saying to you in my video. When you look at white wealth, it looks the same because of the unevenness. Yeah, their top 10% has 75% of their wealth, but they're splitting almost $100 trillion. So even beyond the top 75%, you're still looking at $25, $22 trillion, somewhere between that. Whereas black folks, yeah, we're just splitting $3 trillion. And the top 10% are 2.25 of it. So the bottom 90%, which is all of our working age families, all of them, bar the ones that are hooked to a bloomer, y'all don't have enough to be here.
That was Tone Talks and Yvette Carnell talking. That's your ADOS fuckboy leadership. You heard what he said. If we dealing with his numbers, white wealth, if you add it all up, is almost $100 trillion. Black wealth, add it all up, is about maybe $3 trillion. Let's just make it nice and even. Black wealth, $3 trillion. White wealth, $90 trillion. Because I heard him say 90 trillion before too. 90 trillion plus. But let's just leave it at 90 trillion. There is no closing that racial wealth gap. Period. This is why the focus on closing a racial wealth gap is wrong. The focus should be primarily on black people living good. Because guess what? White people got more money than every other group of people in this country combined. Whites in America got more money than every other group of people on earth combined. Not every other group of people on earth, but they're the richest group of people on earth. The white American is the richest group of people on earth. But other people on earth are living good. The first response that people should be thinking to themselves about black progress is us getting us stabilized and us getting to the highest levels we could possibly get to. And then once we get there, and then we should try to push forward. Excuse me. After we get there. Because there is no closing that. And that's the bozo-ness, that these people try to delegitimize every plan that would help black people by saying, well, it doesn't close the racial wealth gap. Nothing closes the racial wealth gap. Not even reparations closes the racial wealth gap. Not even reparations. Because let's say if you got, because the highest number I ever heard Yvette say is $17 trillion that reparations could be. Even though they keep switching the numbers, but she said somewhere in the ballpark of $17 trillion. That you would get from the government. So white people's wealth would still be intact. But let's say you took it from white people and only white people. That would put black wealth at what? 20 trillion. And they gave it to you all at one time. Waving a magic wand. That would put black wealth at 20 trillion. What would it put white wealth at? If it's 90? 73 trillion. They would still have 3 times as much money. Over 3 times as much money as black people. There is no closing that racial wealth gap. That's a fool's mission. It would take hundreds of years. And black people having their own country to even think about trying to close the racial wealth gap in any meaningful way. It's not going to happen if you're sitting around in America. Even if you got reparations. And black people were 110% responsible with these reparations. Still wouldn't happen. Well, I'm ending this video here. Like, share, subscribe, drop me a comment on what you think. And on that note, family, reach me something if you can. Subscribe to the channel. And peace.